Sara Lewis is a professor of biology at Tufts University and the co-chair of the Firefly Specialist Group of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. An evolutionary ecologist, she spent the last 30 years delving into the luminous lives of fireflies. Her recent work focuses on global firefly conservation, including collaborations with the Xerces Society on protecting North American fireflies. She is also the author of a popular science book called Silent Sparks, The Wondrous World of Fireflies. And this is really perfect timing because World Firefly Day is actually July 3rd and 4th. So perfect timing. We're so excited to have you here this morning, Sara. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And I will go ahead and pass it off to you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I am really, really grateful to the Xerces Society for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today. And to all of you, thanks so much for joining this webinar. And really delighted to be here. So, sometimes I feel like the luckiest person in the world because as a scientist and also just as a human being, I've been trying hard to keep myself open to wonder. And so I feel very fortunate to have spent the past 3 decades delving into the lives of these wondrous creatures. They're certainly the most charismatic invertebrates on Earth, right? So today I'm excited to be taking this journey with you into the wondrous world of fireflies. And together we'll be peeling back the curtain and taking a look at some of the science behind the spectacle. But before we begin our journey, I would really like to hear what each of you thinks about fireflies. So we're going to do this in the chat, and if that works for you. And so just a minute, maybe close your eyes or stare out the window and imagine fireflies. What does that word conjure up for you? Maybe you can try to capture it in just like 1 or 2 words and type it into the chat. And Rachel has offered kindly to read these out from the chat, and so that we can kind of share our collective vision of fireflies. So go ahead and take a minute to do that.
Getting lots of responses. So childhood memories.
Cool.
Fairies. Fun, wonder, healthy habitat.
Great.
Childhood summers. Magical summer nights.
Wow. Great. Love it.
Fireworks. We were just talking about that.
We were.
My 6-year-old says he would really love to see one like I used to every night when I was his age.
Nice.
Summer evenings in the dark.
Great.
It looks like that's it for now.
Cool. So thank you for sharing those ideas. I'm not actually technically savvy enough to like do this instantaneously, but this is a word cloud from a talk that I gave just a couple of weeks ago. And I think it captures many of the same themes that that all of us are thinking about when we think about fireflies. And I think one of the things that makes fireflies so magical is the way they can transform an ordinary landscape into something ethereal and otherworldly. It happens in our own backyards if we're lucky enough to live somewhere with fireflies, or neighborhood parks, and it happens all over the world. Like this hillside in the Smoky Mountains that I saw transformed into a living cascade of light by the eerie ankle-high glows of these blue ghost fireflies. Or this roadside river that I visited in Japan as it was giving birth to slow floating flashes of these Genji fireflies. Or in Malaysia, the mangrove trees that you can watch blossom nightly not with flowers, but with the lights of 1,000 keep fireflies all blinking together in stunning synchrony. With this cross-cultural appeal, fireflies are celebrated around the world, sparking wonder in kids and adults alike. Hey, even Simba loves fireflies, right? They keep us connected to the magic of the natural world. And I still find it amazing that all this magic is created by these tiny insects. Over the past few decades, curious scientists have learned so much about fireflies. We collectively have uncovered many fascinating stories that are just begging to be told. However, today our time is limited, and so I've chosen just 3 stories to share with you. I'm going to start by dispelling a few myths about fireflies. And then we'll turn to some tales of firefly love and romance, always a popular subject. And finally, I'll share with you a story of tragedy that I hope can be averted. So let's dive in and explore some common myths about fireflies. Here's the first myth. Some of you might call them lightning bugs. Some of you might call them fireflies. And these 2 common names are fine. They're used interchangeably. They're no problem. But it's important to recognize that these guys are not bugs and they're also not flies, right? They actually are beetles. And you can tell that they're beetles because they use just 1 pair of wings for flying. Well, the second pair has been turned into a rigid hard cover that folds down over the delicate hind wings and protects them when they're not flying. So fireflies are in good company because they belong to this clan, the beetle clan. It's not only gorgeous, as you can see in this portrait of many different kinds of beetles, but they're famously diverse. Beetles make up nearly 1/4 of all known animal and plant species. So fireflies are in good company. Here's a second myth. You've seen one firefly, you've seen them all, right? But worldwide, there are more than 2,000 different species of firefly, and they come in lots of different shapes and sizes. They also differ remarkably in their life cycles, in their courtship styles. That is, they have many different ways to find and attract a mate. So the most classic firefly are the flashing fireflies, like this proud male. These guys court using quick, bright flashes of light that are produced in their lantern, which is a specialized organ at the tip of their abdomen. This is a Big Dipper firefly, which is so named because the males fly along and they dip down and then rise up while they're flashing, kind of skywriting the letter J as they fly. This is one of the most common US fireflies. They're found across most of the eastern North America, from Florida all the way up to Ontario. They are habitat generalists. They're found in meadows, in lawns, in parking lots, in city parks. They're really well adapted to urban environments. They're the firefly that you see in New York City, in Atlanta, Baltimore, Philadelphia. They also fly really early in the evening, and you can still see their little bodies. And they're really popular with kids because they fly low and slow. They're very easy to catch and release, of course. Here in North America, we have 3 common groups or genera of flashing fireflies. And here are 2 of them. This is a backside view, a dorsal view of the Big Dipper firefly, which belongs to the group called Phytinus. And this is another group called Pyractomina, a group of flashing fireflies in North America, both very common and easy to tell apart because Pyractomina has a raised ridge that you can make out here running down the midline of its head shield. Phytinus doesn't have that ridge at all. It might have a little dent or it might be flat, but it's never ridged. A ridge ridged head shield, Pyractomina. The third group of flashing firefly in North America is called Futurus. And they're distinguished by having really long legs. Check out those legs. They also have a slightly hunched back and shoulders. And I know they look pretty similar, right? They all have sort of dark wing covers with pale margins. They have some kind of, on their head shield, they all have some combination of red and black and yellow. But with a little practice, these groups are easy to tell apart by just these characteristics here. So the next time you have a flashing firefly in your hand, check it out. Another group of fireflies doesn't flash at all. Instead, these glowworm fireflies, it's the females and sometimes the males that light up with a long-lasting glow. One of my favorites is this California pink glowworm. These females light up, but hey, this is an adult female. She does not have any wings, hence the worm part of their name. They're stuck on the ground, and so every night they climb up onto some kind of vantage point where they glow for hours to attract their flying but unlit males. The daytime fireflies have a completely different courtship style. That is a different way to find mates. They fly during the daytime, and these adults don't light up at all. Instead, males use their sometimes very fantastic looking antennae to sniff out scents or pheromones that are given off by their females. This handsome beetle happens to be from Ecuador, but here in North America, we also have some very cute daytime fireflies, including this winter firefly, which is named for the fact that these adults overwinter on tree trunks where you can find them mating in the very, very early spring. And the black firefly with its serrated antennae. These guys are flying now all across the United States. They're flying, they come out in the early summer, and you see them flying very slowly over the ground in a zigzag pattern. They're searching out plumes of chemicals that are released by their females. Okay, so that's a pretty diverse group, right? We've looked at some of the diversity. What ties all these different fireflies together? Well, one thing is that they all belong to the same beetle family. It's called the Lamparidae, meaning that all of these current species share DNA that can be traced back in time to a single common ancestor that lived about 100 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. So yeah, Disney actually got this right. Even dinosaurs might have marveled at fireflies. We also have a pretty decent fossil record of fireflies. So here's a pair of fireflies that got trapped in a little bit of sap, Dominican amber, from nearly 20 million years ago. This is quite a long-lasting romance, wouldn't you say? Okay, here's another thing that ties every member of the firefly family together. Every single juvenile firefly can light up. They're all bioluminescent. What we're looking at here is a long exposure. This is a baby firefly. It's called a larva, and it's lighting up as it crawls down this twig. And it's these juvenile fireflies that deserve the credit for their light-producing talent. It's the juveniles that originally stumbled on a mutation for making an enzyme called luciferase, shown in purple here. And this enzyme is shaped like a tiny little baseball glove. And in the pocket of the glove sits another molecule that's much smaller, shown in yellow here. It's called luciferin. If you mix in a couple of other ingredients, luciferase manages to get this luciferin molecule so excited that it actually gives off light. It was a remarkable invention. Some of you might be wondering, what is the point of being so conspicuous? These juveniles are much too young to be looking for love, right? Well, we know that these juvenile fireflies taste really bad due to toxins that they produce inside their bodies. So their bioluminescence evolved as a really easy to learn warning signal that tells predators, I'm toxic, stay away. To understand why making a glow-in-the-dark warning might be useful, let's take a quick spin around the life cycle of a typical North American firefly. A firefly's life is a journey of remarkable transformation. After the adults do their thing, the female, shown here, crawls down and she lays her eggs in some moist place, like moist soil or moss. After about 2 weeks, these eggs will hatch out into tiny larvae, which crawl down underground. Firefly larvae are voracious predators, and they live underground hunting things like earthworms, slugs, snails. They will spend months to years living below ground, just eating and growing, eating and growing. They use their lights to protect themselves against all the insect-eating rodents, shrews that live underground, and birds that might be foraging in dark places, in the leaf litter. And in this dim and dark environment, there isn't any reflected light. So all the things we think of as typical warning coloration, like the red, black, and yellow of orange of monarch butterflies, those things would be invisible. But if you can make your own light in a dark place, that turns out to be very, very memorable to these vertebrate predators. Once these larvae get big enough, they're eating and growing, they turn into, they go through another stage, they become a pupa, also underground, also bioluminescent, and a bit later, they will emerge as an adult firefly. Once they get here, they devote themselves entirely to reproduction. Most adult fireflies don't eat anything at all. They don't sleep, they don't watch TV. So this life cycle has two important take-homes. So I would like you to remember that most of a firefly's life is actually spent in one of these juvenile stages, spent living underground. And so the juveniles might live for up to 2 years, right? Larvae might live underground for up to 2 years, whereas the adults will live only a couple of weeks. So if we want to protect fireflies, we really need to protect both the adult areas where the adults are displaying and also the habitats where the juveniles will develop. Okay, last myth. I know there's a lot of people who think there aren't any fireflies in the Western US, and I know that makes them sad. And I'd be sad too, but there are fireflies in the Western US, so happy face. This is a map by Candace Fallon that shows the number of firefly species that have been reported from different states and provinces. And so you can see that it's true, there are a lot more firefly species in the eastern states, but hey, look, check it out. There's still plenty of species in the West. So who are these mysterious fireflies? Well, they include daytime fireflies like Elychnia californica. Just like other daytime fireflies, these guys don't light up, but their juveniles do. They also include glowworm fireflies, like the Douglas fir glowworm, which is found all along the West Coast, from Portland all the way down to San Diego. And like other glowworms, it's the females who glow, but these males also have their charms, especially these wild, check this out, these wild looking antennae suggest that males find females using not just their glow, but also some yet to be identified chemical cue or scent. And yes, the Western US also has flashing fireflies. It's pretty exciting. One of them is known as the wiggle dancer. They belong to the Pyractomina dispersa complex. See the ridge running down the center of its head shield? And this is a map from Larry Bushman's Field Guide to Western North American Fireflies. And Rachel's going to put in the chat the link where you can download this PDF. It's a free PDF. And this map shows Colorado, and it shows where the green triangles show where Pyractomina dispersa has been found in high elevation marshy areas in Colorado, along with lots of locations where Photurus has been cited, the red circles, and even a few Photinus. The Western Firefly Project is a community science project that was started by Christy Bills at the Natural History Museum of Utah. And Christy has been, since 2014, compiling records of flashing fireflies all over the West. And Rachel's going to put the link for the Western Firefly Project, or you can just Google it. These map points all show confirmed locations of flashing fireflies, mostly Pyractomina, and new records are being added to this all the time. I also want to let you know that the New Mexico Biopark Society has a brand new New Mexico Firefly project that they've just launched this year. It's a community science effort. And so if you're interested in finding out more about that, Rachel's going to put a link to a Facebook Live presentation that was earlier this year. So this is so Western fireflies, they are no longer a myth, but they are still a mystery. We're really just beginning to get a handle on the diversity of fireflies in the West. So you can get in on the fun by joining any one of these citizen science projects. It's a very, very exciting time to be adventuring into looking at Western fireflies. I highly recommend it. Okay, so on to romance. I call this part of the firefly life cycle splendors in the grass. So it starts with a firefly male who is flying around, and he is going to be advertising his availability by flashing in a particular pattern. Meanwhile, the females are lounging down below, surveying the sky. When a female sees a flash from a particularly attractive male, she'll aim her lantern in his direction and give him a flashback. It's like a come hither sign. So he'll fly closer and he flashes again. And if she still likes him, they'll strike up a flash conversation. Really, it's just like firefly sexting. Many fireflies engage in a stereotyped courtship flash dialogue that might look something like this. The male, in this particular species, the male is flying along and he's giving a single flash that's repeated at regular 5-second intervals. The female down in the grass will respond to these male signals with a single flash of her own that's given after a particular time delay that, again, varies by species. So Photinus fireflies have courtship codes that are diagnostic for different species. And here are just a few of them. So the top line here is the flash pattern of the Big Dipper male. I was talking about those skywriting the letter J. These guys fly along, they begin to flash, they dip down and rise up. Here's another species that has much shorter flashes, that single flashes repeated at intervals as they fly along. Here's a species where the flash pattern is made up of 3 consecutive flashes that are repeated, that whole flash pattern repeated at intervals. Here's a twinkle flasher. So different flash patterns for different species. Along with the different flash patterns, different firefly species also fly in different habitats. So some will fly high up in the treetops, some will fly in grassy areas, lawns or fields, others are found only in wetlands. And different species also partition themselves across the season. Some will come out early in the season, some will come out later. And they also partition themselves by time of night. There are twilight active species that start their courtship flashing at sunset, and they'll fly for just like 20 or 30 minutes, and then they'll go to bed. After those guys stop, completely different night active species will start up their courtship shenanigans. Most of my adult life has been spent following fireflies around at night. And one of the things my students and I at Tufts discovered is that once a male and a female finally hook up like this, they often stay together for a really long time, sometimes all night long. And while they're mating, the male is busy transferring not just his sperm, but also a nutrient-rich package called a nuptial gift. I'm not kidding, that's really the scientific term for it. So if you happen to have X-ray vision and you looked inside this mating pair of fireflies, you could actually see this gift. It's been stained red here just to make it more visible. You can see the gift as it's being passed from inside the male to the female. Because most fireflies don't eat once they become adults, all their reproductive activity is fueled by whatever resources they managed to accumulate during their larval stage. So this nuptial gift turns out to be quite valuable for females because it's packed with protein that the female can use to provision her eggs. We call this firefly bling. So I hope I've given you a new appreciation for scenes like this one. Next time you're lucky enough to be standing out somewhere in a field or a forest surrounded by fireflies, I hope you'll remember what you're looking at here are actually the silent love songs of mostly male fireflies. I still find it very romantic. Over the years, as we've been studying fireflies, my colleagues and I began to notice that fireflies were disappearing from many places where they once thrived. Of course, like all insects, they have good years and bad years, but more and more people in more and more places are noticing that their lights are flickering out. So in the last several years, many of us have shifted our attention to applying all the knowledge that we've accumulated to try to protect these remarkable creatures. We've learned a lot about the top threats that firefly populations are facing. That is, what it is that's putting fireflies at risk. The top culprit is habitat loss. As human populations expand, the loss and degradation of wildlife habitat is a major threat to biodiversity all around the world. You don't need a scientific study. You can see it all around. In so many places, the fields and the forests, the marshes and the meadows that fireflies need to survive are giving way to parking lots and suburban sprawl. This hits especially hard for habitat specialists. That is, those fireflies that need very specific conditions to complete their entire life cycle. So I'd like to tell you the story of just one of these. It's called the Bethany Beach Firefly, Photurus bethaniensis, and it is endemic to Delaware. It makes its home in freshwater coastal wetlands right along the Atlantic shore. And they look like this. They're pretty small. They have long legs, hunched back, look like a Photurus. And during the summer, males fly around their wetland habitat, and they give off these very distinctive bright green double flashes. 50 years ago, not that long, right? Their coastal wetland habitat looked like this, Atlantic Ocean, Bethany Beach habitat. Now it looks like this. In this 2019 aerial photo, this was taken from a real estate ad showing off yet another new development that's being built along the coast. This one is being built right on top of one of the last remaining populations of this firefly species. And once you understand the firefly's life cycle, right, you understand that habitat loss impacts not just the adults, but also the larvae and also the prey that they rely on. So as its coastal habitat disappears, this firefly disappears too. It's a specialist. It can't just pack up and move on down the road. All of this has earned the Bethany Beach firefly the sad distinction of being the most critically endangered firefly on the International Red List of species threatened with global extinction. Worldwide, the second biggest threat to fireflies is light pollution. This is a map that shows the extent of light pollution in the United States based on recent satellite data. And this sidebar shows how quickly this has increased in the past half century. Now, light pollution is cool. Well, not really, but it's better than most because it's reversible. If we can learn to switch off, shield, and dim our light output, we can avoid the situation that's been projected for 2025. And we know that light pollution impacts fireflies because it interferes with the courtship signals that they use to find their mates. Here's the third and the last major threat to fireflies. It's pesticide overuse. Broad spectrum pesticides like neonicotinoids or neonics are still widely used in the United States, in spite of the fact that we know they are highly persistent in the soil, which, remember, that's where firefly larvae hang out, and they're known to be toxic to many beneficial invertebrates, including bees, ladybird beetles, and earthworms. So they're really not compatible with the firefly life cycle. This animated loop shows the steep rise in the agricultural use of one neonic, imidacloprid, from 1993 to 2013, about 20 years. Neonics are also widely marketed for residential use. You can buy these at Home Depot. And this is truth in advertising, complete insect killer. If you look closely, you see that it says kills soil insects for up to 3 months. Fireflies are insects and they live as larvae in the soil. So worldwide, pesticide use constitutes a major threat to firefly populations. Okay, the good news is that we now know enough about firefly behavior, ecology, and threats that we know how to protect them. We know how to create firefly-friendly landscapes. We can provide an inviting habitat for both the juveniles and the adult fireflies by leaving leaf litter and woody debris around in the edges of our property. by providing moist places for females to lay their eggs, wetlands, pond edges, mossy areas, by keeping grass high so that it retains more soil moisture. We can also reduce pesticide use. So we can use organic or least toxic practices for our gardens and lawns if we have to have them, and avoid using broad spectrum insecticides. We can also remember that fireflies need dark nights. So we can eliminate unnecessary outdoor lighting. We can install motion detectors or timers on our outdoor lights. And we can use the dimmest lights possible that still ensure public safety. The basic idea is just to put light where and when we need it. We can also create firefly sanctuaries. If there's a place in your neighborhood or town where fireflies already thrive, think about organizing your local community to help protect that habitat. So imagine a network of firefly sanctuaries across the country, like this one that was created by the New Canaan Land Trust in Connecticut, where people could go to experience the magic of fireflies. Pretty cool, right? So I suppose there could be some skeptics out there. Maybe some of you are asking, hold on, do we really need all those fireflies? There's so many of them. And after all, they're just one tiny bit of Earth's biodiversity. And yet, every time a species is lost, it's like extinguishing a whole room full of candles, one by one. You might not even notice when the first few flames flicker out. But in the end, you're left sitting in darkness. Whether we're scientists or chefs, paramedics or politicians, we all dream about the kind of world we want our kids to inhabit. And I, for one, hope their world includes fireflies because they offer each of us a gift of wonder. It's like an infallible recipe for falling in love again and again with nature. So before I try to answer your questions, I want to close by inviting you to join Firefly International Network's annual celebration of World Firefly Day. It's always the first weekend in July. This year it happens to be July 3rd and 4th. And you can find out more at the FIN website. Rachel's going to put the link in the chat. And we also have a, if you happen to be on Facebook, we have a Fireflies International Facebook group, and you can find out more information there. So come join the celebration. Wherever you are, just go out and see some fireflies or glowworms or daytime fireflies if you can. All right, I'm going to wrap up by mentioning a few resources where, if you're curious, you can learn more. I wrote this book. It's called Silent Sparks. And this is true. If you love fireflies, I wrote this book for you. It has lots of cool stories about fireflies. This is a great field guide to many of the common fireflies in the eastern United States by Lynn Faust. The Xerces website has free PDFs of these excellent publications. You can download the guidelines for protecting fireflies in the United States and Canada, and also sheets on firefly-friendly lighting practices. And those links will also appear in the chat. You can also learn more about our ongoing partnership with Xerces. This is the Firefly Specialist group that Rachel mentioned. Our ongoing partnership with Xerces to identify and to protect the most endangered fireflies in the United States and Canada. And there's a link to that information at the Xerces site also. I'm going to leave this up so that you can write stuff down if you don't want to get the chats from the links from the chat. And thank you so much for listening to all of this stuff about fireflies, and I would be happy to try to answer your questions. So let me see if I can, I'm going to see what's in the Q&A.
Sarah, we have a lot of good questions. If you want, I can just read them to you, or if you would like, you can certainly go through and pick.
Sure, actually, if you could read them, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. All right, this person is asking, they're curious as to what native plants they can put or other actions they can take in their yard to support fireflies.
Yeah, great question. So because fireflies don't really rely on, they don't eat plants, they don't rely on plant, they're carnivorous as juveniles, and they don't eat anything as adults, they will benefit from any kind of, native plantings are great. So anything that you would do to plant native in your yard, native trees will really, really help provide shade for fireflies. Native plantings will help provide moist areas for firefly females to lay their eggs in. And so if you are following the Homegrown National Park movement that Doug Tallamy has started, anything that would be good for Homegrown National Park would also be really, really great for fireflies in your yard. There's also recommendations in the conservation guidelines that are available at the Xerces site. That's a great question.
Great, and I did put those, I put a lot of links in the chat, so definitely check those out.
Great, thank you.
Someone had a question about if you had any recommendations for photographing fireflies. They really love the photos that you've shown.
Yes, thank you so much. We are very, very lucky to have the support of many, many talented photographers who have taken awesome firefly pictures. Personally, I have no recommendations. I don't know much about photographing fireflies, but I do know that the Fireflies International's Facebook group, if you happen to be on Facebook, there's a lot of firefly photographers who are sharing their pictures in that group, and you can reach out to them there, and I'm sure they're happy to share their settings and their cameras and everything else. I know there's a lot of interest in photographing fireflies right now, so that's a great place, a really great resource. Check it out.
All right, perfect. This person asked specifically, when you said that beetles make up 1/4 of all known plant and animals, did you mean weight or variety of species?
Variety of species.
All right. This person's wondering where they can find fireflies in California.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So if you haven't already checked out iNaturalist, I highly recommend that. Fireflies International has a project page on iNaturalist. It's called Fireflies of the US and Canada. And that is, you can then filter that by location wherever you are in California. You can look at specifically what sightings have been posted to iNaturalist. It'll give you a location and an identification of the, we spend a lot of time identifying as much as we can the species that people are posting pictures of. And so it'll give you an idea of what's around in different parts of California. So iNaturalist is a really great resource for that. Thanks for that question. Great question.
Lots of good questions here. Where do the females go for the males to find them, and where do they hang out when sleeping?
Yeah. So for the most part, so for some females, in some firefly species, the females fly. And so the males and the females will be flying around. That is often true of Photurus. For Pyractomina and Photinus fireflies, the females are generally on the ground. One of the reasons, even if they can fly, they often don't fly because their abdomen is full of eggs and they just weigh a lot, and it's very, very expensive and sometimes impossible for them to fly. So the females will be down on vegetation, sometimes in grass, sometimes in a wetland area, depending on where the males are displaying. They can be in shrubbery. They can even be up in trees. And during the day, it's pretty hard to find adult fireflies during the day. I've sometimes happened upon them on the undersides of leaves or in vegetation. So you could try turning over leaves in an area where there's a lot of fireflies during the day, or if it's a grassy area, just looking around at the base of the grass. But it is easier to find fireflies when they're illuminated at night. So yeah, good question. Thank you.
All right, next question. You may have answered this and maybe this person missed it, but how far do they travel? And also, in addition to that, if you treat your lawn for grubs or Japanese beetles, will you be killing the juvenile fireflies?
Yes. If you treat your lawn for fireflies or grubs of any beetle, Japanese beetles, you will be killing juvenile fireflies. So those are broad spectrum insecticide. They're designed to kill soil insects, and they're going to kill fireflies too. So, and remember the larval fireflies, they really can't move very far. So if you're making an inhospitable environment for those fireflies, they can't just like move to the next person's yard or go someplace where they're not exposed to pesticides. They're just going to die. So that's a really, really great question. Thank you for asking it. Japanese beetles, broad spectrum insecticides, they're definitely going to kill firefly larvae. What was the other part of that question?
How far they travel.
How far they travel. So not very far. During the larval stage, you know, we are thinking kind of tens of meters, maybe hundreds of meters. And depending again on the particular firefly species, the adults will also not fly very far. They could be blown by the wind, maybe a mile, a couple of miles, but they're they are in very localized populations. And so for the most part, they can't disperse to a new habitat. If their habitat is destroyed, they can't just pick up and move. Thank you for that question.
Another question about the larvae. How deep do they go into the ground? And wondering if when people are gardening, they may accidentally dig them up.
Yeah. Actually, I think a lot of the postings of firefly larvae on iNaturalist happen to be when people are gardening, they run into this little grub-like thing, and it turns out it lights up, and it turns out it's a firefly larva. So they're often not that far underground. They go farther down, usually below the frost layer during the winter, but they're often pretty close to the surface. You might see them in your garden as you're digging around. And for tourist larvae in particular, so that's one of the three light flashing firefly groups, those larvae they often forage at night on the surface. And so if you're out walking around and you let your eye especially in the fall, you might see Photurus larvae that are walking around on the surface and glowing. Many people, I've gotten a lot of emails from people who see them when they're out walking their dog at night. So along the sides of the road, check it out. Keep your eyes peeled.
All right, this person is wondering how large of an area fireflies need. They personally don't use any pesticides, but they believe their neighbors do because their properties are professionally fertilized and treated, but they have no fireflies.
Yeah, so again, you know, fireflies are different species require different kinds of habitat conditions. And so there are some that require a very specific kind of habitat that you might not have on your property. And there's nothing that you can do to get fireflies to thrive, those habitat specialists to thrive in a place where they're just not going to be able to live. So if there are also other species of fireflies like the Big Dipper firefly, that if that happens to be in your area, You could, keep doing best practices and hope that, that a firefly population might move into your yard. I think that depending on the hydrology and everything else, pesticides are known to move and to move through the soil and move into the water table. So you can talk to your neighbors and see whether many people don't realize that fireflies are insects, and many people don't think about the fact that if you're applying insecticides to your lawn, that you might be killing firefly larvae. So I think a lot of what we're trying to do is to just let people know about the firefly life cycles, and that there's a whole backstory that happens underground. People really don't think about that. So try a education program, see what happens.
All right, there's a few questions specifically about city lights and also just working with the city to reduce pesticide use. I did recommend reaching out to Bee City USA, which is a program that Xerces runs that really works for cities to change their pesticide use. But this person's specific question was how to mitigate light pollution of street lights. They're wondering if red lights are better, and are any cities currently implementing any practices to reduce light pollution?
Yes. So let's see. So Fireflies International is working very closely with the International Dark Sky Association and with the Xerces Society. We have the recommendations for firefly-friendly practices that you can download from the Xerces website. And so, yeah, we are trying to work on mitigating light pollution of streetlights in urban environments, for sure. For people, I mean, there are a lot of known human effects of especially LED streetlights, which are overly bright, and so that is something we're working on. Any cities that have implemented practices to reduce light pollution? That's a great question. I'm sure there are. I don't happen to know offhand. Red lights are better. Okay, so one of the things that Avalon Owens is a PhD student in my lab at Tufts University, and her research focuses on the effects of light pollution and different colors of light on firefly courtship. And so Rachel can put in the chat a link to a paper of hers that just came out in the last couple of months, where she was able to, this is in the laboratory, test different colors of LED light to see how it affects the courtship behavior of one species, a common species of North American firefly. And in general, no light is better than any light. If you had to have some light, red light is possibly less disruptive to fireflies, especially if it's a dim red light. So the dimmer, the better. And red light is also good for people, obviously, because it doesn't ruin our night vision. And so in firefly habitat and at firefly tourist sites, we're recommending that that managers of those sites use the dimmest possible red light that still ensures public safety. So, but there is no one size fits all solution in terms of a color of light that's going to protect all nocturnal animals, even all nocturnal insects, even all nocturnal fireflies. We were hoping that there might be like a one size fits all light. Not going to happen, sadly.
All right, the next question I think is a good one, and a lot of people have asked me this in the past, but what's the difference between fireflies and lightning bugs? And this person apologizes if they missed it. And you had said that.
No problem. Great question. So there is no difference. Both of those are common names for one group of insects. You could call them lightning bugs. It's kind of depends on where you grew up and, like, you know, what you grew up calling them. You could call them lightning bugs. You could call them fireflies. the point I made earlier was that those two things are interchangeable as common names, but they're not bugs, they're not flies, they're beetles.
Right. This next question is great. This person's from South Africa, and they're wondering if you know about the types of fireflies that are available in Southern Africa and their level of endangerment.
Yes, thank you for that question. We are the IUCN Firefly Specialist Group. The IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. We started this group a couple of years ago, and we have been slowly gathering information on fireflies in different regions. At the moment, we know nothing about fireflies in Africa, and we would love to know more. So we're actively looking for entomologists, for people who know about fireflies in Africa, who could join our group. If you happen to know of anybody, send them our way. So we have one of the great things that has come out of the Firefly scientist community, and Fireflies International has sort of brought together Firefly experts from all over the world. But unfortunately, we don't yet have anybody from South Africa or anywhere in Africa. And that's the next frontier for us. So thank you.
All right, it looks like we have time for a couple more questions. I wanted to ask you two specifically. One is, does mowing lawns decrease fireflies?
Yeah, so short grass is not really great for most fireflies. As I mentioned, the Big Dipper firefly, they'll fly pretty much anywhere, so they're fine. But for most fireflies, they need a certain amount of moisture. And the shorter your lawn, the less moisture it can hold, particularly during droughts. And so it's a good idea to let at least some areas of your yard grow up higher, maybe into a meadow or a wildflower area, because that will always be more preferable for many more different species of firefly.
All right, perfect. And another question quite a few people have asked is about favorite places to buy lights and light covers for outdoor lighting.
Yeah.
And sorry, this person lives in an apartment, so they have to retrofit covered outdoor porch lights.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So the International Dark Sky Association, if you Google that, they have recommendations for how to shield your lights and links to places where you can buy particular kinds of retrofitting for lights. And it's the kind of thing that maybe a condominium association could actually invest in shielded lights for all of the residents.
Okay, perfect. You are great at answering questions. We are flying through these, so I'm going to just keep going. We have a couple more minutes.
Yeah, thanks.
This is perfect. This person is from Costa Rica, and they are wondering if there's any information specific to Costa Rica.
Yeah, so we're just starting to gather information for fireflies of Mexico, which have been pretty well studied, and Central America. And so right now, that's the IUCN Firefly Specialist Group. Right now, we don't have all of that information compiled in one place. A lot of that information is in like museum records. So it requires searching databases for the occurrence of different species of fireflies in different areas. And so we'll be working on that over the next year. I was lucky enough to be in Costa Rica in January 2020 and saw some fantastic many different species of fireflies at La Selva, and also at Copé de Dota. And so I do know that there's really incredible firefly diversity in Costa Rica. It's fabulous. And we're hoping to be able to both compile that information, figure out what species are really common, which ones are more at risk, are more limited in terms of their range and their location, maybe their elevation, and then work to try to get more information on those species at risk and try to protect them. So again, if you know of anybody in Costa Rica who happens to be knowledgeable about fireflies, please send them my way. Thanks.